चल छैया छैया पाँव जन्नत चले चल छैया चल छैया 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 चल छैया 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 चल छैया 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 छैया
Before! I said I played these games before!
Morons, we're in the way.
I think I'll start by talking about why I wanted to do this in the first place. I've been fascinated with YouTubing ever since I was first exposed to the platform in the 3rd grade. It's something that I've always admired from afar, but never really got a chance to do due to IRL circumstances. It was always so elusive, something that seemed so close yet so far away. I tried getting into it a couple times as a kid, but I was always intimidated by the scope of it all, most likely due to my own ADHD. There was always something holding me back. By the time I was done with a script, I would attempt to record it, but would end up getting exhausted and I would hate how my voice sounded. By the time I was done with recording, I would be exhausted by all the editing that was required. And by the time I got to the editing phase, I was often too nervous to even attempt to upload anything. Video making is a very different medium, an entirely different beast altogether. Even if it's a small video, it requires a Herculean amount of effort to even get started in the first place. And it's worse when you're doing it all on your own with no help at all. As I got older and more confident in myself and better at managing my own conditions, all those barriers started to melt away. I got better at pre-planning, I got better at time management, etc. YouTubing is very difficult, but it does have its own unique rewards. More specifically, as an artist, it offers you a much greater reach potential than other websites, and the yields are much higher. It's much easier to build an audience. It's much easier to get a larger reach, and there's a lot that you can do on your own. Unlike other websites, the algorithm is not some unknowing god. There's a lot that you can do on your own which can help you rise and fall within the meta. A lot of your success is actually within your own hands. This video is more of a small meditation over my first experiences with video essaying and what I've learned from it. I took my first foray into this medium this year, and I wanted to sort of recap what I was able to learn, and hopefully give you guys some of my takeaways from this experience so that you can study from it. I would definitely say that my biggest learning experience was from the Jello video. It was very much an out-of-body experience. Before moving on, there's 2 points in particular that I would like to amend from my Jello video. The first one is that hating or critiquing stuff that others enjoy isn't inherently a value judgment on those who enjoy it. People are well within their right to like and dislike whatever they want. However, what I want to say is that if you assemble your opinion in a video format, it can be perceived as a value judgment. And that's a risk that you have to be willing to take. Like, if you're going through the effort of trying to assemble your opinion in a video format or a long form article, then on some level you are trying to convince people of something, even if you think you aren't. I also want to revoke my boycotting of epithets erased. I feel as though that was way too harsh, and more than that, as someone who champions artistic expression, it's an intensely hypocritical thing to demand something be taken off the market just because the creator does something that I don't like. I think for me, I wanted to communicate a desire to see a mega popular and influential creator face some sort of accountability, an insurance policy to ensure that he'd never try to do something like that again. I will, however, maintain my stance that he should be blacklisted or at least temporarily suspended from working in translation and localizing as a consequence of his behavior. I mean, even if the team all agreed on what they were doing, the fact is he still broke a fucking NDA. That right there is grounds to be wary of trying to hire them again. There's this weird thing that happens when you achieve some level of virality where people expect you to anticipate it even if you've never experienced it before in your life. It's this weird combination of sadism and unrealistic expectations for people. I think the sour grapes phenomenon comes from a place of perceived helplessness. They see the view count on my video and they suddenly decide that I'm some big shot who needs to be knocked down a peg, despite literally only now starting out. Every video on some level is trying to convince you of its point, but to what degree the creator is trying to convince you is the important aspect. To what degree a creator wants to convince you isn't always self-evident. It's usually something you can glean from reading their previous statements, observing their past behaviors. This helps you make a better, more informed, educated guess on their intent. All of this is to say, I severely underestimated how seriously I came off during this video. Obviously, by leaving it available for people to see, on some level I do stand by what I've said. But I don't know, maybe like not as intensely as I came off, if that makes any sense. So I guess a general rule of thumb going forward, at least with regards to art handles specifically. Take every opinion I ever say and tone down its intensity by like 1 to 2 degrees or standard deviations, and you'll probably be able to gauge my actual opinion on a topic. Obviously, you guys aren't going to know that going in without familiarizing yourself with who I am, so I'm definitely gonna work on that. The Jello video has definitely been the weirdest experience I've had when making videos for the first time. My uneasiness has mostly come from the fact that I'm not comfortable with it representing me as a person, but maybe in time I'll be able to work out my own feelings towards it. Which definitely brings me to one of the first things that I learned from video essaying, which is that not everyone is plugged into your thought process and what's going on in your head. The main thing that I was trying to get across with the Jello video was that the CinemaSins style of critique has consequences, not only on our media diet, but also on our media etiquette, the very way that we engage with art. My concern is that prolonged exposure to this kind of criticism will have adverse effects and negative consequences with how people end up engaging with art. I think there's nothing wrong with criticizing internet critics or criticizing criticism. The way that Jello engages with media is that he strawmans what he dislikes. He never actually engages with what the artist actually puts down, and instead argues against a fictional version of what he perceives it to be, and then proceeds to tear down the effigy that he built in order to legitimize his arguments. Now, people are well within their right to critique things badly. I honestly don't care. The problem becomes when someone who engages with media like this ends up making their way into the production side of things. Regarding localizing, most casual audiences don't check the original translations, so they are usually getting a close estimation to the original text. The problem that I had was that he was effectively hijacking a production to radically alter an artist's work without their prior consent, and was using fake accusations of transphobia to justify his behavior. It's a complete betrayal of art as a discipline and is effectively vandalism. However, I did not articulate my thought process and the flow of my logic properly. I literally missed the segue on how these two concepts connect. As a result, without that missing component, it comes off as I hate him for his opinions and I hate him for his localization work. When what I actually meant to say was he has a concerning pattern of intentionally misrepresenting artists' works in order to justify his tampering with them. I don't blame people for not getting my original point, since that was an egregious failure on my part. Again, I've learned that you have to be very clear about what you are saying and make sure that you are able to make the flow of your logic extremely clear. Because if you fail, you will end up having to amend and defend every little thing that you say. And it's exhausting as fuck. Which leads me into the second thing that I learned, which is that you can't choose which videos get popular or not. I can already hear it in the comment section. If you're so insecure about the Jello video, why did you make it? because I didn't expect it to get 100,000 views. From the very beginning, I intended to take a step-by-step approach to YouTube, slowly and incrementally meeting small personal milestones until I reach my eventual goal. For my first video, I got 250 views. Then on the second one, 500. And then for my first essay, I got like 3.8 thousand views. And then one day I woke up and I saw the Jello video get like 12,000 views, to which I responded by saying, "Oh, cool, neat." But then something happened. The video's views just kept getting bigger and bigger, and I just kept getting more antsy. So then I started to try and sabotage it, including delisting it for 8 months.
At first, we didn't know what to do with all the money. We tried burying it, shredding it, and burning it. But in the end, we decided to just give it all away.
Come again, sir.
I'm getting back in line.
I figured that since the controversy had subsided, no one would give a hoot, and I could just like let it sit there. But no, in fact, it grew even more by like 10 times. It's so weird watching people flock to what you consider to be an inferior product. Within a few weeks, I went from fewer than 200 comments across all my videos to like 1,300 on one video. For someone with ADHD, this was like a massive sensory overload, which is why I tried to comment down on my end. Again, for those who don't make YouTube videos or essays, this is what it looks like from my end. An endless flow of opinions and comments directed towards you personally, on top of having to deal with IRL stress. This, of course, leads me to point 3, which is that not everyone has the stomach for internet drama. I saw an opportunity to make a video on something topical, but it helped that it was surrounding a topic that I was actually passionate about, which is arts preservation. I'm still trying to find my footing on YouTube, so I'm trying different things out to see what's a good fit for me. For this video, I wanted to try my hand at more drama-centric stuff like other commentators. I'll say this, all these other commentary slop channels make this stuff seem so easy. And when you're watching these channels gain hundreds of thousands of views, it seems awesome from afar. But if you're like a naturally empathetic person, then it's definitely not something that you should try to do, even if it seems tempting. Because this shit will constantly gnaw away at you. It definitely takes a certain kind of personality type for this line of work, one that requires a significant empathy gap. You have to be very comfortable with the idea of watching people receive a public lashing. You also very much have to be married to your opinions and absolutely unchanging in them. And these are all things that I'm not really all that good at. I'm not gonna try to act dumb and pretend that I've never participated in an online dogpile. I'd be lying. But at the same time, there's definitely like degrees to this shit. Small venting to a private audience is definitely different from providing a mass media platform for people to brutalize a subject. My uneasiness comes from the fact that I almost immediately after making the video, like 2 weeks in, started feeling guilty about it. Again, it's weird because yeah, I still fucking hate Jello, but I started to feel bad about all the stuff I said, how harsh and how intense I came off. Just because I don't like someone doesn't necessarily mean that I want to enact any cruelty on them. I don't feel like 2 wrongs necessarily make a right. Like, yeah, I want to see some accountability, but not like perpetual punishment. The version that you see is actually a more censored version of the one that I made initially. At around the 10K mark, I went into nix some of the meaner jokes, but I was like still unsatisfied with it. That's the thing about most online drama. After a while, you cool off. I'm not the type of person to still give people shit for the stuff that they did years later. And if I believe that they've shown improvement, I'll always be the first to acknowledge it. I think for me, it just kind of goes back to my own feelings regarding the nature of this transgression in particular. For me, defacing an artist's work just sends me into a fury. Art is something that I'm very passionate about, if you haven't gotten that already. Jello is what I refer to as the triple threat of online media production. A fantastic artist, vocal talent, and video editor. The man is a one-man artistic juggernaut and has gotten big for very good reasons. He's an exceptionally talented guy. In addition to having fantastic instincts about what people actually want to see and having his finger on the pulse of pop culture, he possesses an especially lethal combination of talent. And that alone is genuinely genuinely worthy of some respect. In addition, he's a phenomenal director. I'm not a fan of Epithet Erased, but I respect how it was able to accomplish its goals on a budget. And I can recognize its contribution to the indie sphere. As I've said, any critique that I give is from the perspective of an artist. I think artists live in an incredibly vulnerable and dangerous time, where corporations are breathing down our necks, with techno barons and their AI art baring its fangs, and threatening to destroy centuries of art, as well as poisoning our planet while doing so. I think now more than ever is the time for solidarity among artists. Seeing Jello go after all these artists disappoints me because I think it encourages more division. I don't think I even hate Jello, it's more that I'm just disappointed that this is what he chooses to do with his platform, using it to sow division and stir shit rather than bring a community together. I also see a lot of people say that they used to like him and are voicing how they feel guilty or like realized a mistake or whatever. And I'm like, what? It's still okay to like his stuff. Like, you don't inherit Jello's mistakes by proxy for liking him. That's not how this stuff works. You haven't made a mistake. Again, as I learned from my Ellis Mark video, I definitely underestimated the value of comfort YouTubers. And if you still like him, then it's totally okay. You are not a bad person for doing so. And in the end, yes, Jello is a massive, disrespectful shithead. But like, at the end of the day, he's still rather harmless compared to more dangerous figures in media. Luc Besson and Roman Polanski are both convicted rapists, and they still get work. Note, as of writing this video, Jello has max revived his So This Is Basically series, where he proceeds to do literally everything I described in my video. It's not really a thinly veiled hit piece on Eiichiro Oda. He more or less openly insinuates he's an incestuous pedophile and makes incredibly inappropriate comments towards his wife and children. This is absolutely unacceptable and should be called out.
You should take care of yourself and not work yourself so hard that your coworkers have to force you to get surgery and to sleep. They all care about you. Your daughters care about you, Oda. You know what you can do to show them that you care about them?
Oh. Sexualize another child their age?
No, Oda. That's wrong.
Oh. Younger?
No.
I'm not even saying there should be no good criticism towards Oda. A good example of this would be criticizing his continued association with Nobuhiro Watsuki, who has been charged for the possession of cheese pizza. The unfortunate reality is that art oftentimes is very gross and complicated. It's not even new within the world of art itself. Francis Ford Coppola is one of our greatest living artists, and he continues to associate with and support the predatory rapist, Victor Salva. We shouldn't tie art to morality. There are great, technically competent artists who can do bad things, and controversial artists who by all counts are actually wonderful people. If you choose not to support any of the listed authors for their continued support of Nobuhiro Watsuki, I will not judge you at all. But unless you're like an accomplice or can be tried for like negligence, you don't inherit the crimes of others by proxy. None of this is an excuse to bring his wife and daughters into the mix. We live in this weird culture where we're obsessed with tying people to proxies in order to disqualify other people, in order to circumvent having an actual discussion over this stuff. This guy is a fan of this guy who's a personal friend of this guy who committed a crime, therefore he's equally as guilty. That's not how any of this stuff works. And if we're talking about judging people for their art, what does that say of the esteemed artist Pepperspot Sunshine? In the end, I made something that was ultimately not in my nature. I've spent a lot of my online presence defending others and promoting good habits rather than attacking people. And admittedly, I'd like to do more of the former personally. If I ever do go after someone, it's usually because they did something to someone else, or they did something extremely awful. Make sure that if you're making drama-related content, it's something that you can be comfortable representing you well into the future, to save you headaches like this one. This experience has also taught me that a lot of people engage with YouTube videos more as a public forum. I assume this is where the majority of the success of the commentary genre is actually rooted in. I found myself upset that people were seldom engaging with the points I was actually trying to make. I mean, I shouldn't be, but hey, what you gonna do about it? And it was so weird because like, sometimes people were just bringing up totally unrelated shit. Like the Ellis Mark drama from last year that was a big shit show. And Daft Pina for some reason, when he had like nothing to do with this indie pilot at all. None of which I brought up in any capacity, as I don't really like that kind of online voyeurism. I realize that videos like these provide a service in that they provide a safe space to legitimize dissent. At least with commentary channels, the real value of the video is the comment section. A public platform / miniature forum which allows people to comfortably share opinions they otherwise wouldn't usually feel emboldened to do so normally. This is ultimately where my conflict with the Jello video lies. I think some people did understand what I was trying to say, like they implicitly understood the logic of my argument, and others, especially former Jello fans, seemed to appreciate me creating a space that allowed them to air their grievances in a non-judgmental way. But ultimately, it's at odds with my own feelings as an artist and as a creative. Speaking of public forums, I'm also active on 2 other platforms, that being Twitter and BlueSky. Feel free to check me out there and consider subscribing my channel and joining my Discord while you're at it. But as I was saying, regardless of whether you intended to or not, people will be offended even if you don't mean to offend them. Some people felt that I was too harsh on Mark with my video about his pilot. Would you believe that that was actually one of my biggest concerns about that video as well? In fact, before I released it, I literally checked with like 5 other people in order to get their opinions on the topic, as I wanted to know whether or not I was coming off as too cruel. They all literally told me that I was worrying over nothing and I shouldn't mince my words, and that Mark would be mature enough to handle it. And it turns out they were totally right. I really appreciated the comment that he left on my channel and how he took the critiques that I made with grace and dignity. I think for me, my harshness comes from my distaste of self-sabotage. I prize artists being extremely uncompromising and bold in their visions, even if it does end up coming off as kinda funky. I'd rather get something that's weird and textured, that's personal to someone, than something that feels like it was made by a committee to anticipate audience demand. There is a purity to imperfection. In the end, there were like 5 jokes I ended up knocking out and softening because I thought they were too mean. I like to make sure that the jokes that I make are things that I can editorially nix easily in order to adjust the tone of my opinions and stand off the coarseness of it while still keeping the structure intact. I want to loop back to the amended point that I made earlier. Hating stuff that others like isn't in and of itself a value judgment on the enjoyer, but rather can be perceived as making a value judgment due to the authoritative nature of the video medium. It's a risk that you have to take whenever critiquing something. Ascertaining someone's true feelings comes from a combination of looking at all of their statements, familiarizing yourself with the content of their character, and getting a more intimate understanding of their online persona. Criticizing a popular creator and sticking to my guns is a risk that I take, and I still stand by my critiques. If people think that I hate Mark because I was a bit tough on him when I critiqued his work, then it's fine. I accept that risk. I will say that I noticed that I have a few new dedicated haters and I'm only like 2 videos in. I'm not intimidated by first name, bunch of numbers, and their greasy little sausage fingers. Nor am I intimidated by people who use their porn alts to shit on me. I think the hardest thing to get adjusted to is the idea of making living art, in the sense that letting a video exist on its own is hard. As I said before, videos are a very unique medium in that they have the potential to influence people well after their inception. As a result, they are a living, breathing medium in the sense that they can take on a life of their own. It's a very different medium from the one that I hail from, which is illustration, a static medium. A medium in which you can go back and change things, correct things, fix anything from rendering issues to line art, etc., etc. It's a medium where you can repost multiple variants very easily with no hassle. This is completely different from video making and publishing it on YouTube. Perfection isn't an option, it's the standard. As a result, you need to be able to anticipate every possible scenario, all possible arguments, counter-arguments, as well as consider different perspectives. Again, for the Jello video, I wanted to shoot something out casually to strike while the iron was hot, like the rest of commentary YouTube tends to do. But as a result, I left a lot of gaps in my video. It came off as incredibly sloppy work. I feel as though if I had taken the assignment more seriously, I would have taken more considerations into account. Again, it's all a very different feeling from being a traditional/digital artist and being able to show my progress step by step, being able to re-release new versions of the same pieces, etc. YouTube punishes experimentation and demands absolute perfection, which is new for me as a naturally experimental person. I love being messy and trying new things with new mediums. It's also very strange being on the other side of the content creator relationship. Now with a modicum of an audience, you can definitely feel that it's a much different experience from being a regular commentator. You do get more attention to be sure, but you also assume far more risk and accountability. The biggest change is having to simultaneously deal with multiple commentators at the same time. Not just one or two, but hundreds upon hundreds of comments. A seemingly never-ending stream of them. Even with just 2 moderately viral videos, I'm already exhausted mentally. It's partly why I paused comments periodically in order to get a bit of a breather. And I hope that you can respect my decision on that part. It's all just trying to acclimate to a new experience, really. This is a pseudo point, but I like to call this one 0.6.5. Audiences really don't have a lot of patience for failure. Actually, who wants to sit through all this text? Me, bitch. Get ready to read the entirety of Moby Dick every 30 seconds. My lorem ipsum ass is going to perform verbal diarrhea on your eye sockets. So I follow a lot of smaller channels that tend to do stuff like this, pop on text screen for added commentary, many of them being smaller music analysis or animation breakdown channels. I assume that people had already watched Mitchell's vs. the Machines and knew these scenes by heart, so I figured I'd just add some complimenting commentary. Honestly, a lot of these bigger commentary blocks were actually last-minute additions, like genuinely zero-hour type stuff. In the end, I just severely underestimated the audience's level of patience, and that's more of an audience-creator gap, if anything. For better or worse, I've always been an extremely patient person, so I don't mind stopping and smelling the roses and taking extra time to digest what an essayist has to say. As a result, I don't end up consuming a larger volume of media. I'm very slow to pick up and start new things, and as a result, my media literacy ends up being not as much as what I'd hoped. But of the things that I do consume, for the works that I do resonate with, I end up getting a deeper, intimate understanding of them. In addition, I'm actually a really fast reader and typer, and am very much used to taking in multiple media channels at once. This was definitely a gross failure on my part, not anticipating that the audience is not the same as me. But then again, it wouldn't be art if on some level you weren't making it for yourself. In the world of art, you're allowed to fuck up and grow and experiment. However, in video making, not so much. People are fed a steady diet of highly polished video essays made by creators who've had years to hone their craft, as well as being able to employ editors that are seasoned veterans within the sphere. So regardless of your skill level, jumping into the field warrants immediate comparisons. It's definitely not like the early 2000s where you can just take time to find your footing. And I actually want to say that I'm not even angry about any of this. If anything, I appreciate the criticisms as it gives me more time to see what works and what doesn't. It's all just reckoning with the new experience. I just thought I'd chronicle my feelings so that others who are getting into the sphere might be able to relate to this. I was actually very touched by how positive the reception to both videos has been. A lot of your words and comments and criticisms have been exceptionally kind, as well as informative, and it does mean a lot. As I said before, I'm an extremely patient person IRL, and it takes a lot to make me angry and blow up. I usually reserve my anger for things I'm extremely passionate about. Not to say that there weren't some outliers. Someone called me autistic using what's very obviously their porn alt. Another person also salivated over the idea that I'm gonna be made a pariah within the animation community, like they were already envisioning fan fiction in their head. The truth is, I don't really care. In all honesty, I don't really want to be too integrated with any established community online. I would rather keep my inner circle tight and vetted with people I like and who like me back. At this point in my life, I don't really intend to make a living on YouTube. I actually like working more IRL. A real job keeps your mind focused and tethered to the real world, because it's easy to get lost and caught up with the nonsense in the online world. Of course, I'm open to befriending people, but I'd appreciate keeping parasociality at a distance if it's alright by y'all. On that note, regarding the Ellis Mark video, one amendment I'd like to make is that I severely underestimated the value of a parasocial connection. My approach to art is academic. I consider it a cross between a mode of expression and a science. Topics like the effects of mass media on the human psyche are beyond fascinating, and are absolutely worthy of study due to how pervasive their effects are on our society. Hence my fascination with creatives like Lev Kuleshov and James Gurney, individuals who are artists just as much as they are academics. Of course, this is my view, and if you don't agree with it, that's totally fine. However, not everyone comes to YouTube in order to learn. Sometimes people just want to watch something casually. In a world that's becoming increasingly harsher towards younger generations, with the cost of living rising exponentially, there's immense value in giving people familiarity and comfort. And it's something that I definitely have to tip my hat off to. I really did vastly underestimate the value of comfort YouTubers. Some of my favorites include Doge Walker, Corey in the House, Radio Shack, and Binji-kun, to name a slight few. I think I lost sight of this because I don't really casually watch YouTube that much anymore. At least not as much as I used to. These days, I only really go to YouTube in order to learn new things for work or expand a knowledge domain for a hobby. One of the most surprising things that I learned that you might find some comfort in is that most of your success hinges on your audio, thumbnail, and subject. The biggest difference between posting on YouTube versus a place like Twitter/X or DeviantArt is that there's an actual meta to the platform, and your success is dependent on studying what that meta is. And it's one that you can actually learn for yourself very easily. Unlike illustration, which is a crapshoot, and when you're at the mercy of the almighty algorithm, a lot of your success is actually within your own hands. The major downside being that compared to other mediums, video production requires a Herculean amount of work to pull off by comparison. That being said, I would say that 60% of your success hinges on the following in no particular order. That being your thumbnail, your audio quality, and your subject matter. Think about the sea of online commentators who got big just by putting an audio track to a CSGO surf video, documenting degeneracy, or more accurately, plagiarizing stalker forums and image boards. The actual substance, unfortunately, rarely matters, and there's an upsetting amount of creators who demonstrate this idea. The same goes for art commentary as well, as you can just use a speed paint as a backing track to talk about the same topic that other people cover. Also, maybe it's just me, but am I the only person who's genuinely weirded out that there's this entire economy of scale of kids under the age of 18 who cover topics like grooming and sexual exploitation? Like, I can't be the only person who thinks that's like completely fucked up, right? But I mean, if anything, that's just a testament to the point that I'm trying to make. As long as your thumbnail is catching and relevant and makes use of the best metadata practices, your audio is clear, and you have an in vogue topic, people will come regardless. But again, even those still matter. And you do actually have to put a significant amount of time into them. As I said before, the thumbnail requires proper etiquette and should make use of the best practices. The audio needs to be properly cleaned and tuned and balanced, and the subject has to be something that's relevant and something that actually interests people. Part of the reason I started this channel in the first place was because I was excited about its potential to open a dialogue. I think I mostly meant my criticisms for English-speaking audiences and sensibilities, and I should have specified that, but that's genuinely on me. Even so, I was really happy to see all of the responses to the video, even regarding the various portmanteaus that accomplish the same goal as itadakimasu. In French, there's bon appetit, in Polish, there's smacznego, and so on and so forth. Even beyond that, there were some really cool perspectives that I got. I got this really thoughtful response from a Chinese fan translator of Western fan comics who appreciated me bringing up how cultural barriers can affect comedy. I was also made aware of the popularity of the Brazilian Yu Yu Hakusho dub and its impact on the Latin America dubbing scene. Some people brought up aspects like accessibility, like how their dyslexia makes it harder to read subtitles, and how dubs provided an avenue for them to actually engage with the art. As for some of my biggest regrets, saying Western culture instead of American culture. As I was properly corrected, there's actually many portmanteaus that accomplish the same thing. I really should have specified the United States, so that's a big mistake on my part. Another one would be those really embarrassing spelling errors. For the first two essays that I did my projects off of LumiFusion to my own detriment. It was a massive bitch to copy and paste paste white text from the Google Docs to the software, since it was all being done off of my iPad. On top of that, I would have to wrestle with freaking autocorrect constantly to get every single paragraph properly oriented. I was so eager to get the video out in time that I overlooked those errors. So now they exist as a monument to my oversight. CapCut is far more intuitive in that regard, just a simple copy and paste away. And of course, there's that crunchy ass audio. Again, the recording was really rushed this time around. I try not to make too much noise, not to interfere with the rest of my family who often are on meeting calls and are off recording their own stuff, and so on and so forth. Ever since then, I started recording when people weren't home. It does take longer, but ultimately results in much cleaner audio with higher quality diction. Much like with autocorrect, LumaFusion's controls works against it, with audio balancing being extremely difficult to perform due to the nature of touch sensitivity. It's like I'm typing with chopsticks. I think a change in scenery will actually help fix this. I'm actually planning to move out in a bit so I can get more recordings out of the way faster and cleaner without having to tiptoe around other people. At the time, I had no pop filter, so you can hear all the nasty plosives bombard your ears. I want to say for the record that I really did try to fix it. It's why I actually privated it months ago, but because there's no way to upload a separate audio track, I ended up getting stonewalled and just had to accept it. Immediately after publishing the video and hearing it for myself, I went out to buy a pop filter. I also made sure to buy a stand and get a proper setup and record my audio at a consistent level and distance. You know, baby steps. As for Amber and Cora, I'll be honest, I did that just because I wanted to make people mad. If you're familiar with the field of psychology, then you should be familiar with the landmark study done on classical conditioning, the Pavlov's dog experiment. So basically, I did my own miniature rendition of the Pavlov's dog experiment. I wanted to see the impact of video essays on classical conditioning firsthand, the stimuli being expressing sympathy towards younger, dark-skinned female characters, and the expected response being a canned response from some of the members of the audience. My hypothesis being that I would see a substantial amount of fucking novels written about how objectively wrong I am over a 10-second long clip. Oh, that's a cute comment. Which video essay gave you that opinion? I'm actually not that deeply married to this critique. This was just me fucking around, and I'll probably do it again in the future. I do actually like both of these characters, to be sure. I just find it fascinating how passionately people hate them. So to the unwitting participants of my study, I would like to issue you a formal apology. I just thought it was really fucking funny. The last thing that I want to make note of is that in the end, it takes a certain amount of courage to make essays. You do ultimately need a certain level of courage and self-confidence in order to start making video essays. For those who are nervous about stepping into the genre, it's definitely intimidating, but it's something that you can learn to get better at. The barrier of entry is actually fairly low, and it doesn't take much to get started. A free software like CapCut, a mic with a pop filter, a program like Audacity, and a proper media production pipeline structure, and anyone can pull it off. Because of this, the medium tends to be cartoonishly oversaturated. But on the plus side, it also means that anyone can make their own voice heard. If you don't think that you have the courage to make YouTube videos, don't worry about it. Honestly, I didn't think I had any at first either. But courage is something that you will all eventually find in time. And I'm sure it's true for everyone watching this video. For those who are still nervous like I am, I'd recommend taking baby steps to build up your confidence first. Speaking from personal experience, it really helps. All this being said, I definitely have a newfound respect for online essayists, even ones that I don't necessarily like. You guys have an incredible amount of courage to be able to put yourself out there so confidently and consistently. I definitely envy you. As I said before, one of the best parts about this medium is that it has an extremely low barrier of entry, so you can start out small and gradually build your base over time. And as a result, you can acclimate to your own comfort levels on your own terms. As for where I want to go, going forward, I really don't want to be doing purely drama stuff. I only want to cover an online drama if there's an interesting art-based angle that I can attack it from. I mean, I think I'll do a few more. I've had one in storage for about a year that I seriously need to tweak in order to make it more palatable. If I do talk about other people, I definitely want to use them more as a Trojan horse, as in I want to use them as a vehicle to talk about other topics that I find fascinating and tie them in to make a broader point. I put out a topic list earlier, but honestly, I have a few other ones in mind as well. The one that's on my page right now was just a sampler plate. I toyed with the idea of critiquing other YouTubers and their art and trying to find interesting angles with that. So stuff like, who did it better, Dovendraw or Carson DeLosa? Manga Common and Saul Bass? Doug Walker versus Ed Roth? Which one is the rattier Fink? If I was going to do a drama cinema-centered one. I did toy about doing one on someone like Jar. Going forward into next year, I mostly want to focus on art, as well as other stuff that I'm passionate about. As for some of the ideas I had floating around, I wanted to talk about the Sing movies and how they're a continuation of animation's greatest love affair, synchronized song to animation. There's also another essay on Tatsuki Fujimoto, and how he brings the rules of cinema to the sequential medium of comics and manga. As someone with ADHD, my mind is constantly in flux, and my thoughts race faster than I can write them down. As much as I'd like to cover every topic in my head, I physically can't do it due to factors outside of my control. The fact is, I do need help, which is why I'm putting together a team, or at least putting together a small list. This video is sort of a semi-official roll call. Having more hands on deck would definitely help me out a lot with video production, and would help me get more projects out faster. Plus, film is a collaborative medium, and I've always wanted to take part in that process. What can I say? I love a good collaboration. I don't really need too much, or even that many people applying. Just some simple editors, as well as some gophers who can help me out with research. As long as you're able to use a basic editing software, as well as download images and videos from the internet, that's more than enough. And yes, if it wasn't clear before, all these roles will be paid. You will be compensated for your labor. On that note, hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to like and subscribe, comment below, and let me know. As usual, I have another round of End Slate questions I'd love to ask the audience. For those who have made videos on YouTube, how much of what I said sounds accurate? What do you agree and disagree with? If you used to work in another medium before YouTube videos, what was it? And how does making YouTube videos differ from the one that you used to work in? And what advice would you give to up-and-coming YouTubers? And for those who want to make YouTube videos but haven't, what's holding you back? What are your biggest fears and anxieties? As usual, you can follow me on X and BlueSky, either works. I tend to be more active on those platforms anyways, and I'm much easier to reach from there. And while you're at it, feel free to join my Discord server. Would love to have you there. This is Art Handles signing off. Until next time, be easy.
A fella with a social disease. The Officer Grubsky, what are we to do?